Brought to you by Penguin.
Judges, Volume 2, by Michael Carroll, Maura McHugh, and Joseph Elliott Coleman. Read by Akko Mitchell, Madeleine Rose, and Laurence Bouvard.
Introduction. I've been asked by my editor, David Thomas Moore, to pen this introduction to the second omnibus of Judges' novellas, and I'm more than happy to do so, especially since the bulk of today's work so far has involved scanning old magazine articles for my comics blog and writing an irate diatribe about how narrative is not the same thing as exposition, actually. If you've read the first Judges' omnibus, you'll have seen some of the effects of the introduction of Special Prosecutor Eustace Fargo's new hardline Department of Justice to the United States of America in the early 2030s. It all began with Judge Dredd, Origins, by Dredd's creators John Wagner and Carlos Ezquerra, which, almost 30 years after the character's debut in the British anthology comic 2000 AD, finally showed us how Dredd's world evolved from our own. But the stories of the first judges on the streets are only barely touched upon in Origins, so that's where we come in. When designing this series, David and I made a conscious decision to focus on the judges whose names didn't necessarily go down in history. They're not saving the world at every single turn. Most of the time, they're just doing their jobs, trying to keep the citizens alive and put the perps behind bars. Or put them in the ground. That's another option. The judges have the power to dispense instant justice. Someone commits a crime, and you, as the arresting judge, decide their punishment there and then. No trial. No getting off on a technicality. No appeals. You decide they're getting 10 years. They're going to serve 10 years. And it starts right now. No, they don't get a phone call. But in a decaying society, punishing the perps isn't always so straightforward, because first you've got to determine the difference between the real criminals and the desperate citizens just trying to survive. My novella, The Avalanche, kicked off the Judges series, with the first batch of judges arriving in a small Connecticut town, and their first case is the murder of one of their own. George Mann's Lone Wolf is a tense procedural thriller in which the judges have, legally, executed a serial killer on the street, only to discover that there's another victim out there somewhere, possibly still alive. And in When the Light Lay Still, by Charles J. Eskew, a cop who has testified against his former partner for the avoidable killing of an innocent, signs up to become a judge. Response to the series has been amazing, I'm happy to report, and a little bit divisive, too, which is even better. Readers familiar with Judge Dredd and his world will know that there's a huge variety of different types of stories that can be told, so it was important to us not to produce cookie-cutter adventures. All three are very different books. The positive reaction to Judges has also led to a comic strip spin-off, Dreadnoughts, debuting soon, as I write this, in the Judge Dredd magazine, with a script by me and sumptuous art by John Higgins and Sally Jane Hurst. With this second set of 3 novellas, we've moved on to the 2040s. The judges have been established throughout the nation, but the old guard are still there, the remnants of the old ways that the judge system was designed to supplant. But any citizen of a nation that's been forcibly occupied by another will tell you that the introduction of a new policing system cannot ever run smoothly. Same thing applies when a nation's own government decides to tackle crime with a new, uncompromising police force. Those who will suffer most aren't the criminals, but the ordinary people. In the short term, at least. But give it time and things will get better. That's the promise. It'll be worth it in the end. No pain, no gain. Am I right? In Psyche...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?